Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Planning Board meeting, Tuesday, May the 6th. Could I have a call to order, please? All right, any declarations of conflicts today? Seeing none, before we continue, I just want to mention that, is Sen online?
Sam and Dr. May.
Sen
I am,
and-
Madam Chair.
Oh, hello, and also one of the applicants from the Economic Development Department, Doug Dumais, is also on, and you'll see a few of those files come along in the 14 files we have to review today. Approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Beck, seconded by Bobby Kenny. All those in favor? Wonderful. And adoption of the minutes from Tuesday, April 1st. Okay, moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Lee. All those in favor? Wonderful. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move right on to our reports. We have a pretty healthy agenda today, so the first report is zoning and development bylaw, and I'll turn that over to Sebastian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. And what a lovely afternoon it is. So, the purpose of my report is to recommend housekeeping amendments to the zoning and development bylaw to support multiple options for delivering notices to developments specific to sections 3.8.3b, treating with minor variances, section 3.9.3b, major variances, section 3.10.4a, rezonings, section 3.15.4, reconsiderations, and to include new definition of terms in Appendix A. The amendments is to include the words or deliver by hand, drop-off delivery within those sections. And the definition of terms would include those for ordinary mail, deliver by hand, and drop-off delivery. So due to the regulation explicitly stating delivered by ordinary mail, our development application process could not be achieved during the 4-week Canada Post strike from November 15 to December 16 in 2024. During this period, notices stipulated by the bylaw could not be delivered to affected property owners. Consequently, some development application processes were placed on hold, resulting in meetings and public consultations being cancelled. These recommended amendments are aimed at improving the clarity and effectiveness of the city's regulations and giving the city more leverage in executing its mandate, and to ensure that if there are future strikes, the city has multiple options in place to deliver notices to inform affected property owners of critical development matters. Notices were published per section 3.10 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw in The Guardian on March 15, 2025 and March 22, 2025 to inform residents of Charlottetown about proposed housekeeping amendments to the Zoning and Development Bylaw and to invite their feedback. The department received comments but did not receive any objections concerning the proposed changes. The housekeeping bylaw amendments were presented and discussed at public meeting on March 27, 2025. No objections were received during or after the public meeting. However, comments were received during and after the public meeting. A summary of the comments on housekeeping amendments from the public meeting held March 27, 2025, are as follows. 1. How will property owners who live outside of the province receive this notification? 2. How will property owners who no longer have an external mailbox or use postal boxes receive this notification? 3. Will the letter be returned to City Hall if there is no secure location at the mailing address to leave a letter? And 4. Could they at least 7 calendar days be increased to at least 14 calendar days to give notices to residents? Comments were addressed by the Deputy Mayor and the Manager of the Planning and Heritage Department. The meeting was advised that their concerns were taken into consideration and will be addressed in the overhaul of the Zoning and Development Bylaw, which is currently being undertaken. The meeting was also advised that this amendment is to address the number of options available to the city to get mail out. Therefore, the Planning and Heritage Department is requesting that the suggested housekeeping amendments relating to the following sections of the Zoning and Development Bylaw, sections 3.8.3b, dealing with minor variances, section 3.9.3b, major variances, section 3.10.4a, rezonings, section 3.15.4, reconsiderations, and the updated Appendix A with definition of terms be recommended to Council for approval.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, so Councillor McCabe has moved that we accept staff's recommendation for these housekeeping amendments to move them on to council, and Paul Conley has seconded that. So the resolution's on the floor. Are there any questions on the resolution?
Madam Chair, I have one.
Okay, you go
Question.
ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if electronic delivery of mail was considered part of the public discussion or even generally by the planner.
Thanks.
emails.
Thanks, then, but you go ahead, Sebastian. You go ahead and answer it.
Sure. Electronic delivery under the law is not the ideal. It is required under the law that property owners receive something in writing, in hand. However, as far as electronic information is concerned, the city will upload such information on their website and other social media medium.
May I ask what law are you referring to, Sebastian?
I believe in the same zoning and development bylaw. I am not able to quote that section right now. It requires that notices are delivered through the mail system.
Oh, no, yes, of course, and we are looking into amendments, so I'm just wondering if it was discussed. That's fine. As you know, some residents are not living, or non-residents, in that question was raised. In those cases, probably sending notices through emails would be better suited, but I'll leave it up to the planning department to make the appropriate judgment in this case. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep, thank you for that. And just a quick follow-up on that, as we progress in the changes to our zoning and development bylaw, a modernization of the zoning and development bylaw is part of the priority. So that will be looked at the time, but for now, these are housekeeping issues that needed to be dealt with in case there's ever another postal strike. So that's what we've got. Any other questions? If not, we can call the question. All right, all those in favor to move this on to council? Sen, are you
In favor.
Okay, great.
In favor.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, everybody. We can move right along to our second application 154 Great George Street for a major variance. David is here to present the application. The applicant is actually the city of Charlottetown, which is the Department of Economic Development, Arts and Culture. So we do have Doug Dumais here online if anyone needs any questions. So over to you, David.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll just wait for the slides to load there. Okay, the following is an application for major variance requesting to allow for a vinyl wrap artwork piece to be applied to a traffic control signal box, which is located within the public right-of-way and within the 500 lot area. The proposed location for the art installation, as mentioned, is a traffic control signal box, which would be found is found at the southeast corner of the intersection of Great George Street and Kent Street, shown here. So it'd be this corner of the intersection, approximately where my cursor is. The following is a representation of the artwork that would be applied to the traffic control box shown in the street view photo. The artwork was created in 2025 by local artist Aaron Arsenault, and it's entitled "A Walk Downtown," as shown on the slide before you. In accordance with Section 3.9 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw, on April 8th, a notice of the Planning Board meeting was circulated to 31 surrounding property owners within 100 meters of the subject property to request written comments on the proposed variance. It's noted that one written comment was received expressing support for the application. Just a summary of our analysis of the variance, some positives. The variance would enable the artwork's installation to promote the work of local artists in the community, and that the artwork would add to the vibrancy of the downtown and make a utilitarian structure more visually appealing. Noted shortcoming is that the proposal does not meet the regulations in the Zoning and Development Bylaw, and for that reason, the variance is before the Planning Board this evening. So to summarize our recommendation on this application, the Planning and Heritage Department encourages Planning Board to recommend to Council that the following major variance for the traffic control cabinet located within the public right-of-way and adjacent to subject property addressed as 154 Great George Street, PID number 342717 be approved, and that is to allow for the establishment of a vinyl wrap mural on the exterior of an existing traffic control cabinet within the public right-of-way adjacent to the subject property, whereas murals or any sign painted upon a building or structure within the 500 lot area are otherwise prohibited. And I will note for Planning Board's information that, as the Deputy mentioned, that this application is an application that's been submitted on by city staff in the Economic Development Department, and it's one of 4 pieces of public art as part of a common project that the ACTEV folks are looking to have installed very shortly. So that's a summary of the application, our recommendation, and some context, and I'll turn it back to the chair for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks for that, David. I didn't notice in the report, just out of curiosity, is this wrap permanent, or is there, I didn't see it, is it here for the summer? Is it here for basically till it wears off, or just out of curiosity?
Through the chair, I know that Mr. Dumais from Economic Development's on the line, and perhaps he could provide more clarity on that. I'm under the impression that it would be a permanent installation, but I'll let Doug clarify that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. So to answer it, the proposal is for these artworks to last about 5 years. That's the minimum amount of time that we would hope that they last. The material very well could last longer, but that's kind of the minimum that we've indicated in our agreements that were signed with artists, the artist contracts. So the way that we're ensuring that longevity is it's printed on anti-graffiti and anti-sticker vinyl. So they're resistant. Of course, you can never avoid someone if they really wanted to destroy any infrastructure, including the artworks, unfortunately, but that's kind of a countermeasure to extend the life of these pieces. And additionally, like most of our public art in the city, we do kind of keep an eye on them and commit to at least one annual visual inspection, where if we identify that there's some issues, someone's scratched it, destroyed it, or created some sort of hindrance to the artwork in any way, we would consider potentially reprinting the artwork and committing to reprinting it if needed up to a period of 5 years. After that period, it would just be a question of if the material is still in good condition, and if it's a question of replacing it maybe with a new artwork with a new call down the road. But that's the estimated timeline for right now. So that would be considered, I guess, permanent under our public art policy.
Great, thank you for that. I noticed on social media yesterday that there was other installations happening. Maybe these are these same ones, are they? They were talking about these installations, so maybe they're already started, are they? Are they already starting to be installed?
If I can answer that one too, Madam Chair, thanks for the question. The artworks are not yet installed, the ones that are currently part of these 2 variants that are proceeding to Planning Board today.
Right.
And then there's 2 others that are outside of the 500 lot area that don't require planning permits, or rather major variances, but do require sign permits. So those, to my knowledge, haven't been installed yet, and we haven't initiated that as we haven't received the approvals, which we're hoping to get today and then further at council next week.
Great, it'll be a nice improvement to the city. Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Beck.
Yeah, it's funny. I was out riding my bike today, and I noticed one of these art pieces. I don't think I ever would have noticed them before had I not seen this in my report package, but it's kind of cool, I thought. Maybe coincidental, but, and I think it was on Fitzroy Street, if I remember, Doug. And I guess my question is how many of these do we have down in the 500 lot area? And what are the plans for the future with regards, I know we've got a couple of others that are outside the 500 lot area, but is this have we identified areas that we're looking to add additional pieces, or are we just kind of, I'm not sure where we are in that whole process. Maybe if you could elaborate on that a bit for me.
Sure, yeah. So to the chair through Councillor Beck, thanks for the question. So I think I can answer, I guess there's 2 parts to it. The first is that the first step in this was obviously getting the kind of initial project idea and then identifying which cabinets we were going to kind of do in this first round. So I got a list, thanks to our Public Works crew, of the cabinets within the city that the city owns that are at intersections that have kind of these signalized intersections, because not all of them have the full cabinet. Some of them are either smaller, some of them don't have these cabinets just because they're not signalized. So I can't remember the exact number, but they're throughout the city. So in terms of which ones we selected for this first round, we kind of considered a few factors, and this was along with the approval of the Arts Advisory Board, where we kind of looked at visibility from the street, how easy it was to see them from if you're biking or walking, driving by them, places that kind of have a high traffic. So there might be some areas that are very visible cabinets, but they're in kind of more residential areas where the sidewalk's across the street and you wouldn't get as much visibility. So those were kind of scored, I guess. And then the other factor is considering there might be some really great cabinets along University Avenue, but with the University Avenue master plan, those might not be lasting the full 5 years. They might have plans to be relocated or torn down within the next 2 years or less. So kind of if you take all those factors, it does limit the number of cabinets across the city that would be really impactful for these kind of public art pieces, because you want people to engage with them and for them to add value to certain streets and intersections. So this is kind of, I guess, meant as a first year to see how it's going and how they're received by the community. And there's, of course, many other cabinets within the 500 lot area that we could look at adding more artworks in the future across the city. As David mentioned, there's 2 in the 500 lot area, but then there's others that are outside of the 500 lot area. So we have our cultural policy, which, you know, has a few elements that relate to this, one being that we're trying to add as much public art as possible to the city and using city infrastructure. And then the other part of it is we want to make sure that we're looking beyond just downtown. So if you kind of look at the locations that we've chosen for all 4, they actually are at ward intersections. So these artworks will actually be in 5 of 10 city wards. So they've been kind of very strategically positioned to make sure that they're getting as much visibility and impact as possible. So future planning would have to just depend on if we decide to continue this project in the future. Hopefully we will, but it's just subject to Arts Advisory Board's discussion once the projects are installed.
Great stuff.
Yeah,
Thanks.
great. Appreciate all the answers to these questions. No doubt you'll get all these questions flushed out before we get the other applications going. Go ahead, Councillor McCabe.
Mine's just a comment. I think brilliant idea, and the painting that you've selected for here is amazing. So I'm excited to see these two.
Thank you.
Okay, so staff is obviously recommending that we move this on to council for their approval of this major variance. So do we have, moved by Councillor McCabe and seconded by Lee McDonald. All those in favor? Sen, are you in favor?
Yes, Madam Chair,
Okay,
I'm in favor.
great, all right. So we can move on to our next application. And again, I'll move that over to you, David, for, this is a similar application from the city of Charlottetown.
Yeah, that's correct, Madam Chair. Just wait for the slides to load up there. Okay, there we go. So the following application is application for major variance, similar to the last one that we dealt with. It's a request to allow for a vinyl wrap artwork piece to be applied to a traffic control signal box located within the public right-of-way and also within the 500 lot area, which is in the vicinity of 230 Euston Street, shown on the image before you. The proposed location for the art installation would be a traffic control signal box found at the southwest corner of Euston Street and Weymouth Street, so approximately here. And the installation is part of a set of 4 public art pieces where 2 are proposed within the 500 lot area. The next slide illustrates the artwork, which is entitled A Path Through Time, which was created in 2025 by artist Chester Hewlett. The image on the left is a street view capture of where the traffic control box is located that the artwork would be applied to. In accordance with Section 3.9 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw, on April 8th, 2025, notice of the Planning Board meeting was circulated to 84 surrounding property owners within 100 meters of the subject property to request written comments on the proposed variance, and it's noted that no comments in response to the circulation were received. Just a quick analysis of the application, some positive attributes. The proposed variance would enable the artwork's installation to promote the work of local artists in the community, and the artwork will add to the vibrancy of the downtown, thereby making a utilitarian structure more visually appealing to the passing public. Shortcoming, as noted, is that the proposal does not meet the regulations in the Zoning and Development Bylaw, hence the variance which is before you tonight. Just to summarize our recommendation, the Planning and Heritage Department encourages Planning Board to recommend to Council that the following major variance for the traffic control cabinet located adjacent to subject property addressed as 230 Euston Street, PID number 346536 be approved, and that is to allow for the establishment of a vinyl wrap mural on the exterior of an existing traffic control cabinet within the public right-of-way adjacent to the subject property, whereas murals or any sign painted upon a building or structure within the 500 lot area are otherwise prohibited. So that is a summary of the request and the application and our recommendation, and I'll turn it back to the chair for any discussion. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions on this one?
No question, but a comment, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just wondering if, if these installations should be given, as of right in the future zoning and development bylaw. And, I'm sure the planning department is looking into it, but, as long as they're consistent with city's policies, I don't think, it requires, a major variance all the time, as long as it is, in the bylaw.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think we have quite an extensive list for the consultants and the staff as they're reviewing the zoning and development bylaws. We modernize some of these variances that come through. So I'm sure we'll see that as it progresses this spring and summer on some of these changes to streamline the process a little bit. Any other questions? If not, does somebody want to put a motion on the floor to? Okay, moved by Councillor Beck, seconded by Paul Conley. All those in favor to support this to move on to council? Wonderful. Great, thank you.
In favor.
All right, moving on to the next application. The applicant is the City of Charlottetown, and it looks as if the owner of the building might be Piers Alliance, or something, that's what the application says anyways. Over to you, Stephanie. Maybe you could clarify that for us, because I don't know if they own that building on Queen Street or not.
Hi, yes, they do own it.
Okay, wonderful. All right, over to you.
Good evening, members of the board. I'll be presenting the next 3 items on the agenda. My first application is for a major variance located at 250 Queen Street to allow for artwork to be installed on the exterior facade of a commercial building located within the 500 lot area. The subject property is located mid-block on Queen Street. The surrounding properties consist of mixed-use residential and commercial zones, as you can see on the map up there. The proposed artwork was originally created in 1970 by Erica Rutherford and was reproduced in 2021. The city currently has the rights to the image for 10 years, ending in 2031. The artwork is 169 by 181 inches in size and will be affixed to the facade facing Houston Street with a tension aluminum frame, making it easily removable. A total of 29 letters were circulated to surrounding properties advising of the application and requesting comments and feedback. No comments were received. Staff's analysis of the proposal concluded that there were no negative implications as a result of the artwork being installed at this location, and it would add to the vibrancy of the downtown. The art piece has a symbolic meaning towards the 2SLGBTQ plus community, and the installation of this artwork would promote inclusivity while honoring the artist. The Planning and Heritage Department encourages Planning Board to recommend to Council that the following major variance for the subject property addressed as 250 Queen Street, PID 346155, be approved to allow for the installation of printed artwork to be affixed to an exterior facade of an existing commercial building within the 500 lot area. That concludes my first presentation for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Probably like one of my favorites of Erica Rutherford's. It's nice to see it's going to continue to be on display somewhere. Any questions? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Beck.
Was this not the piece that we looked at that was going to be going down on Sims, down on Sydney Street, back a while ago? And it was going to be put on a, some kind of framed kind of format and then affixed to the, I guess, the wall in between Gahan House and Sims? Am I remembering this correctly, or is it the same piece, or is that piece still down on, or is it different pieces?
Stephanie might be able to clarify this, but I'm going to give it a shot. This piece was by the old triangle for a little while, and then it was going to move to Sims, and then something happened, they couldn't do it there, so now it's moving here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's the story on this absolutely beautiful piece of artwork. Any questions? Any other questions? Do I have somebody to, yep, okay. Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Lee McDonald to accept staff's recommendation to move this on to council. All those in favor? Wonderful. Thanks,
In
Steph.
favor.
Okay. Okay, next application. Stephanie, you're up again.
Just one thing, is it going to be screwed to the wall like the other one was going to be, or is this vinyl? Sorry, Stephanie. Okay, I may have missed that.
It's going to be affixed with a tension aluminum frame.
Thank you.
So over to Stephanie for this one. It is from Delmex Signs, and it's again a application for another major variance. Over to you, Stephanie.
My second presentation of the evening is for a major variance located at 96 Kensington Road, PID 1009471. The major variance is requesting to allow for the installation of 2 electronic signs on an existing freestanding sign located within the required 100-foot buffer of a residential zone. The subject property is located on the corner of Kensington Road and Garfield Street and is surrounded by residential and commercial zones. The electronic sign will be installed on the north and south-facing sides of the existing freestanding sign. A total of 28 letters were circulated to surrounding properties advising of the application and requesting comments and feedback. No comments were received. While the majority of the surrounding properties are commercial and industrial uses, staff determined that the electronic signs would or could contribute to the light pollution of the adjacent residential properties. However, there is a row of mature trees on the adjacent residential property that would create a natural barrier from the electronic sign. Additionally, the Development Authority will request that the electronic sign be turned off outside of the business's operating hours. The Planning and Heritage Department encourages Planning Board to recommend to Council that the following major variance for the subject property addressed as 96 Kensington Road, PID 1009471, be approved to allow for 2 electronic signs to be installed on an existing freestanding sign within the required 30.5 meter, 100-foot buffer of a residential zone.
Thank you for that, Stephanie. And just a point of clarification, folks, if these are approved, they can't have any video. These, we don't have, so can only be for the wording, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah. So any questions on this?
I'm going to move that we accept staff's recommendation.
Okay, moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Bob Kenny. All those in favor? Great. Sena, you
In favor.
Okay, great, thank you. Here you go again, Stephanie. Over to you. Number 6.
Sorry, I'll just wait for the slides to come up. All right. For my final item, I'll be presenting an application for a major variance located at 10 Orchard Court, PID 366260. The intent of the major variance is to allow for an addition to accommodate an attached garage that projects into the rear and side setbacks. The subject property is located on an interior residential lot within the R1S zone and contains a single-family dwelling. Surrounding properties consist of R1S and R2 zones, primarily containing single detached dwellings. As you can see on the current slide, the site plan shows that the proposed addition projects into the west side and rear setbacks, right there. The proposed elevation drawing shows that the attached garage will not exceed the existing height on the property and will have minimal effects on the neighboring properties. A total of 52 letters were circulated to surrounding properties advising of the application and to request comments and feedback. No comments were received. Staff analysis of the proposal concluded that the development would have limited impacts on the surrounding properties as the addition will not obstruct views or create shadowing on neighboring properties. Additionally, the lot is oversized and will maintain adequate green space. The Planning and Heritage Department encourages Planning Board to recommend to Council that the following major variance for the subject property addressed as 10 Orchard Court, PID 366260, be approved to allow for an addition to the existing dwelling to project into the following setbacks. The west side yard setback by 0.11 meters, which is 0.36 feet, and the rear yard setback by 6.2 1.29 meters, which is 20.6 feet. And that concludes my final presentation for the evening. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Stephanie. Any questions? Okay, does somebody want to move by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Paul Conley, that we accept staff's recommendation to move this on to council for this major variance? All those in favor? Sin?
In favor, Madam Chair.
Great. All right, thank you, Stephanie. Okay, on to our next application, 101 Longworth Avenue, major variance, and I'll turn that over to you, David.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Following application concerns property addressed as 101 Longworth Avenue, PID number 363671. This is a request for major variance to allow for a temporary seasonal outdoor patio that would be accessory to an existing eating and drinking establishment, Red Island Cidery, to operate until the end of October 2025 on the subject property. The outdoor patio would occupy one required parking space and one required loading space. The proposed location for the outdoor patio is on property located in the MUC zone on the west side of Longworth Avenue, south of the intersection of Belmont and Mount Edward Road. The patio was previously approved to operate on a temporary basis in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. The following is a site plan showing the proposed location of the patio. So the outdoor seating area would be across this area here where the parking and loading spaces are located. In accordance with Section 3.9 of the zoning bylaw, on April the 8th, 2025, notice of the planning board meeting was circulated to 37 property owners within 100 meters of the subject property to request written comments on the variance. In response to the mailed circulation, one letter of support was received. Just an overview of our analysis. Some positives concerning the application would be that it would encourage business growth and development for an established business in Charlottetown that is open and employs year-round. Notwithstanding the temporary elimination of parking and loading space, the business has demonstrated that it can function appropriately, notwithstanding losing those spaces. In the previous 5 years that the temporary use has operated, no complaints or negative feedback have been received by the city. Shortcoming is, of course, that the proposal does not meet the regulations in the zoning development bylaw, hence the need for the major variance. So to conclude, our recommendation is that the Planning and Heritage Department encourages Planning Board to recommend to Council to approve the request for a temporary structure variance for an outdoor patio to occupy one required parking space and one required loading space at 101 Longworth Avenue, PID number 363671, until the end of October 2025, subject to 1, the applicant receiving an associated development permit from the Planning and Heritage Department. So that is a summary of the application and our recommendation. I'll turn it back over to the chair for any discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, David. So, I mean, I know every year we approve this application. I'm just wondering, I see Melanie's here, so I know she's working on all of the changes to our bylaws, and particularly she's been working on the amendments and the changes to our patio bylaw that's going to amalgamate in both the various departments where some of these patio applications would fall under. So I just wanted to, make sure that the applicant was aware that an approval this year doesn't necessarily mean it will be the exact same approval going forward, considering we're in the process of amending this bylaw. And so David, if you can just verify that for me, that would be great.
Yeah, through the chair to the board, and anyone listening or watching right now, everybody knows that the current zoning bylaw is under review. We have a whole new bylaw that's being drafted. This is one regulation that is certainly open to change, and we have let the applicant know that, come this time next year, like it could be a whole different landscape that we're dealing with. This might be we might not have to deal with it through this mechanism next year. It could possibly be an as-of-right permission. We don't know, but all I know is that the new bylaw will, possibly be more permissive of these type of uses, given the intent and the direction that we're trying to take with the new zoning bylaw. So.
Yeah, so just to clarify, it's not obviously it falls under zoning and development in one aspect, but there's the patio bylaw where this will eventually fall under, because right now, half of our patios fall under Public Works and Protective Services. Some of them fell under Planning and Heritage. So I know that Melanie is working on an amalgamation of that bylaw. That's more what I was referring to, and I just didn't want to set up anyone's expectations for disappointment on however this might unfold. And I see Mike there with his light on, so maybe Director Mike, you can shed any additional light onto that for the folks.
Those are some great points brought up. As David has mentioned, not only are we embarking on this comprehensive review of the zoning and development bylaw, which impacts this particular application in the sense of the active parking requirements, which could change under a new regulatory regime. But we, as mentioned, you have the patio bylaw, which operates dealing with some of those separate issues. So this is a good example of what we as staff and council are trying to grapple with in the context of modernizing our regulatory regime. So we're trying to look at this issue from a comprehensive view, and instead of dealing with these things separately, bringing it all together so that we can be more efficient in the future.
Great, I appreciate that clarification. And Councillor Beck?
Yeah, so this whole patio, we've sat on police and protective services for the last little while, so we've been talking about it ad nauseum at times. But I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we learned recently that all the patios that we've approved now go to the end of 2026.
Just the ones on the public right-of-way. Those are the ones that need encroachment orders. This particular one is on private property, so it doesn't have, this is a yearly approval. It's the ones that you're correct on are the ones that actually use city property. This uses private property, so this one doesn't have an approval till 2026.
So we can't give them the same sort of consideration. I mean, they've gone 5-6 years. There's been no issues. It's proven to work well. Do we have to come back here year after year and subject them to the same process if it just seems to me we're being a little, it's not an equitable treatment. I know that there's differences in terms of one's in a public right-of-way taking up parking spots. This is on private property. But I think it's just on the point of providing assurances that from year over year, they can have an element of consistency, that they're going to be going through the process. It just doesn't seem to me something that we should have to be coming back here year after year.
So thanks for that, Councillor Beck. A couple of things there. One, these types of patios were never permitted prior to COVID. So these were what we called our COVID patios. This gave people the opportunity for physical distancing, social distancing. When that was over, they were working well, so they kept coming back on a yearly basis, and we were approving them. The second part of your question, and you're right, having these coming back as one-offs seems to be counterintuitive to time for staff and for council and for boards like this. So I think that will all be addressed in the changes to zoning development, as well as the bylaw for the patios, and identifying how the patios will work on private property and how they'll work on city property. So you're spot on. Hopefully this time next year, we will have a far more streamlined approach to what we're doing here today. Yep, that's all I got. Any other questions?
I'll move to accept the temporary structure.
Okay, moved by Councillor McCabe and seconded by Bob Kenny. To move this on to council, any questions on the resolution? Not? All those in favor?
In favor.
Thank you very much, folks. Okay, moving on to number 8, Montgomery Heights East Royalty School, rezone. Over to you, Laurel.
So, good evening, Madam Chair, members of Planning Board. This application is a request to rezone portions of lands adjacent to LM Montgomery School in Montgomery Heights subdivision, PID numbers 1100528 and 193284, from medium-density mixed-use residential MUR to institutional I, from low-density residential R2 to institutional I, and from low-density residential single R2S to medium-density mixed-use residential MUR. It's also to amend Appendix A of the official plan map for portions of these lands from medium-density residential to institutional, and from low-density residential to institutional, and from low-density residential to medium-density residential. So the surrounding context, the property is bounded to the north by low-density residential housing on Holmes Lane, consisting of R1N and R2S zone lands up here. To the east by institutional zone land, Lucy Montgomery School and McWilliams Road, with medium-density housing consisting of MUR and R3T zone lands. So Lucy Mott is here, and then we have the housing on McWilliams Road. To the south is low-density residential housing on Norman Drive and Terra Heights, consisting of R1L and R2S zone lands. Down here. And to the west with low-density housing on Livingston Drive, right here, and medium-density housing on Emily Drive and Lucy Crescent. So right here, we've got higher and medium. The property is currently zoned medium-density mixed-use residential, R2S low-density residential single, and R2 low-density residential, and it's vacant on developed land totaling approximately 9.49 hectares, 23.45 acres. This is the parcel as subdivided, the preliminary subdivision plan. The purpose of the request, the purpose of the request, the government of Prince Edward Island has requested to rezone the property to allow for construction of a new elementary school on the site, and the applicant is proposing to construct a new road which will connect Terra Heights to Emily Drive and further subdivide the property along the south and west boundaries for low-density and medium-density housing. The proposed road will provide a connection between Emily Drive to McWilliams Road to the east. So the proposed road come in here, come along to Emily Drive, and connect over to McWilliams Road. Or McCrae Drive, I'm sorry. So, the zoning and development bylaw requires that before amending the regulations of the bylaw rezoning any parcel of land, council shall conduct a public meeting to receive the views and opinions of the public and the applicant. And that meeting, in accordance with section 3.10 of the zoning and development bylaw, was held on April 8th, 2025. City Council approved the request to proceed to public consultation on April 8th, 2025, and the meeting was held on April 16th. On April 16th, written notification was sent to property owners located within 100 meters of the subject property. A total of 96 letters were sent to property owners advising them of the meeting and to solicit their comments and feedback. 3 responses were received. The responses were not in opposition but stated concerns regarding the construction of the proposed road, the change to the R2S to MUR zoning along the south boundary, and that tree buffers be maintained along the north boundary. So the area along Holmes Lane, there is a tree boundary there, like a hedgerow, and they were wanting that to be maintained once the school is developed. So comments received at the public meeting. On April 29th, the public meeting was held in council chambers. Representatives from provincial government and CBCL were there to present the details of the application, including site layout, proposed uses, housing, open space, the school, and the road network. Following, residents were given an opportunity to comment on the application, and comments received from the residents at the public meeting included questions about a drainage easement, which was thought to be located along the property boundary of homes that fronted on Holmes Lane. Residents raised concerns that the easement could be blocked during construction. The province confirmed it would not, that you are not allowed to block an easement, and that stormwater would be channeled through the proposed road system to a stormwater management pond. Concerns about the location of the child care center adjacent to Holmes Lane. Residents felt to alleviate noise, it should be located further away from their homes. The applicant stated that the concept plan showed a general placement of the child care center and that it could be set back further from the existing homes when they get into the actual site design. And that the child care center would be constructed at a later date. So at this time, it's very preliminary where it's shown on the site plan. So there were also concerns about the MUR zone along the southern boundary and if it allowed group homes. So following the public meeting, staff reviewed the zoning and development bylaw and concluded that section 5.8 of the bylaw stipulates several zones where various types of group homes are included. Some of the low-density zones, such as the R1L, R1S, R1N, R2, and R2S zones, all allow group homes. Limited, and a group home limited is like it's more like a residential dwelling with a few individuals that live within. So medium density commercial and institutional zones such as the R3, R3T, R4, R4A, and R4B, MURI, MUC, DMU, DN, and DMUN zones allow for group homes. So those are a little bit more commercial kind of group homes or institutional style group homes. So although section 5.8 stipulates specific zones where these uses are permitted, the actual zone category in many of these zones do not include these uses within the permitted uses sections of the zone. So we have two sections of the bylaw. We have section 5.8, which is more in general provisions, and then we have the actual zone categories, which outline the specific uses that are permitted in the zone. So in some of these zone categories, it does list that group homes are permitted, but in some zone categories, they're omitted. So we are seeking clarification on that for future amendments. So the MUR zone requires a mixing of uses, single detached, semi-detached, and townhouses, and those are mixed by percentages on a city block. So with the mixing, this would result in less density for the portion of land that's proposed as MUR along the south boundary, backing onto Norman Drive on the concept plan. And the reason for that is low-density uses such as single-detached dwellings and semi-detached dwellings, which are allowed in the MUR zone, would be located adjacent to the properties that back onto Norman Drive because those are lower-density dwellings. So we would pair up the lower-density uses that are permitted in the MUR zone with the property boundary with the homes that are on Norman Drive. The current R2S zone, which is actually in existence now, just north of Norman Drive, would allow actually more density along this portion of the property if it remains with the R2S zone. And the reason for that is because it can be fully developed with semi-detached dwellings. So we did, following the public meeting, we did receive comments from the applicant. And they agreed to amend the concept plan to take out the MUR zoning that did pose a concern to the residents at the public meeting. So what was stated in the email from the applicant is based on feedback received from the residents of Norman Drive at the April 29th, 25 public meeting, the province would like to revise our proposed rezoning limits to leave the zoning directly behind the 3 existing Norman Drive homes as the existing R2S zone. We will provide a sketch on Monday, which we did receive yesterday. Although I don't think the zoning change would have resulted in any less or more dense development, we are only looking to add value to the neighborhood. So if leaving the zone in that area provides more comfort to the residents, the province is agreeable. So this is the revised concept plan. This area on the original concept plan was shown as MUR zone. It's been revised to R2S. This does remain as MUR. This portion of Norman Drive was just subdivided this year, so this is all new lots. I'm just gonna flip ahead. This was the existing concept plan, so you can see the change in the zone boundary, the proposed zone boundary. Whoops. So in conclusion, this is a substantially sized parcel at approximately 24 acres. If the school is constructed, it will provide additional capacity to accommodate the educational needs of children within the neighborhood now and well into the future. In addition, the site will provide additional open space and recreational facilities within East Royalty for its residents. It's the opinion of planning staff that this proposal meets many of the technical requirements for the creation of a complete neighborhood, and staff are also of the opinion that this request has merit and meets many of the policies and objectives of the official plan and the East Royalty Master Plan. So with that being said, we are recommending for approval of the application to rezone the subject parcels, and it is subject to the concept plan that was provided by the province on May 5th, 2025. If there's any questions, I'm happy to address them, and the applicants are also here to address any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Laurel. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. Thank you, Laurel, for your presentation. And I'd like to thank the applicant for taking the time to hear the residents that came out and express their concerns. It certainly makes it easier when you have your existing community members on board with what your plans were, and I think you showed that you listened and actually did hear what their concerns were. So for that, I want to thank you. And I also am excited. Schools are this center. We've blown up in East Royalty. We've outgrown what we have, and we definitely need a school. And I'm happy to get these shovels in the ground this summer and get this moving. So again, thank you on behalf of the residents that I represent for actually taking the time and listening to what their concerns were.
Thanks for that, Councillor McCabe. If there's no, Councillor Beck, go ahead.
Well, I just want a clarification. It seemed to me in the package, they were saying that based on the feedback, it looks like the resolution is saying to leave the mixed-use residential in. But then the letters were saying, or the province is saying they're okay keeping it as R2, R2S. Am I reading that right, or am I missing something?
I think there's going to be sections that will move into that, from what I understand, and Laurel, you can correct me but the 3 homes that are existing, the land behind them will remain, the lots behind those 3 homes will remain as R2 only. Is that correct, Laurel?
Yes. This land here was R2S. And they're proposing to leave it as R2S. On the original concept plan we received, the proposal was to go with complete MUR along there.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think it's going to change the density at all. It's just, I think it's just a bit of comfort for the residents. I mean, a zoning bylaw for lay people is hard to understand, and even though I tried to explain the difference, that there wasn't really going to be any change, like whether it was zoned to MUR or not, it would have allowed the calculation for how we mix the uses to be a little easier, but it's really not going to change, what gets placed there.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that, Laurel. If there's no other questions, staff is recommending that we support staff's recommendation to support this application. Move it on to council. Moved by Bobby Kenny, seconded by Councillor Beck. All those in favor? Great. Thank you.
In favor.
Thank you, Sen. Okay, moving on to, thank you, folks, for coming in. Moving on to 171, 181 Kensington Road. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the next application is an application for rezoning an official plan amendment. This is a request to rezone the subject properties located at 171, 181 Kensington Road, PID numbers 385-930, 385-948, and 555-177, to rezone from the R1L to R3T zone, and to change the land use designation in the city official plan from low-density residential to medium-density residential to permit development of the combined site with 9 townhouse units. The subject properties have a combined lot area of approximately 0.41 hectares or 1.01 acres and have a combined lot frontage of 80 meters or 262 feet along Kensington Road to the east and a combined lot frontage of 46 meters or 151 feet along Hemlock Drive to the south. So Kensington Road here and Hemlock over here. The immediate neighborhood contains single detached dwellings with institutional and recreational uses. Tiny Tots Daycare Center is located 100 meters to the north, which would be the blue parcel up here. The Belvedere Golf Course is 75 meters to the southeast, shown in green over here. And George Smith Park is off of the screen, but located 200 meters to the northeast of the subject properties. Abutting properties are all zoned R1L and contain existing single detached dwellings. Next slide illustrates a site plan of what's proposed. So the 9 townhouse units would be arrayed in 2 blocks of 4 units and 5 units. There would be new access off Hemlock here, Kensington Road here. The units would be internally facing, so the driveways and garages would face away from Kensington Road and face internal to the site. And there would be an outdoor private green amenity space here for the use of the residents who live on site. In accordance with section 3.10.4 of the zoning bylaw, on March 17th, 2025, notice of the applications were circulated to 44 property owners within 100 meters of the subject property to solicit request written comments on the proposed rezoning and official plan amendment applications. It's noted that no written responses were received in response to circulation, either for or against the applications. In accordance with section 310.3 of the zoning bylaw, on March 27th, 2025, a public meeting of council was held to consider the merits of the applications and provide opportunity for response and feedback from members of the public and council. Responses from neighborhood residents at the public meeting expressed general concern with respect to traffic, site access, density, and noise that may be associated with the proposed development, as well as garbage collection and snow storage, parking for visitors, site drainage, and general aesthetics were also expressed as concerns. In terms of feedback that planning received from pertinent city departments, City Fire noted that only 3 hydrants are located within a 1,000-foot radius of the properties, that the hydrant on Fountain Drive might be further than 1,000 feet when you measure along the access routes, and that Fire stated if we consider each group of units together as a building, then at least 1 more hydrant, maybe 2, would be required, and that a good idea would be that another be added to Kensington Road. Water Sewer stated that units will all require their own water sewer services, and the services should be kept out of the driveways if possible. Public Works stated that they were generally okay with the design. Access onto Kensington Road is quite close to the intersection of Bolger. However, they do not consider it to be a serious issue, and overall there will be a net reduction in the number of access points onto Kensington Road from the site. And Public Works stated that they have no issue with the proposed access onto Hemlock Drive. Parks and Recreation stated that no parkland allocation would be required for the developments. Since this is a redevelopment of the properties, parkland allocation would have been provided at initial development. And Environment and Sustainability asked that they be circulated on planting plans for frontages where planting requirements are outlined, being 1 tree per 10 meters of lot frontage. A summary of our analysis, based on the number of units proposed being 9 units and the size of the combined site, the proposed density for the site would be approximately 22 units per hectare. It's noted that there was a previous concept for the site proposed to Planning Board and Council in 2024, which suggested a total of 12 townhouse units for a density of over 30 units per hectare. Previous concept from last year was recommended for denial by planning staff. Ultimately was turned down by council by a vote of 9-1 at their meeting on October the 8th, mainly due in part to the proposed higher density at that time for the site. The applicants have since returned with an updated concept which proposes a more modest amount of density and have made application as well to address the policies of the official plan in this regard through the proposed change in the land use designation. While there were concerns expressed at the public meeting on March 27th by residents citing concerns for traffic, site access, density, noise, garbage collection, snow storage, parking, site drainage, and general aesthetics, the new application has received support from all city departments with noted technical requirements that would need to be addressed with respect to future construction and site development. It's noted that both Public Works and City Fire have expressed no concern with respect to traffic and site access, noting that the current concept is acceptable with respect to technical requirements. With regard to noise, the concept proposed by the developers has demonstrated that the development would actually act to mitigate and buffer road noise from Kensington Road with respect to the existing lower density development to the west of the site. Additionally, the applicants have provided a shadow analysis demonstrating that there would be no shadow impacts upon adjacent or abutting properties. It's noted that garbage and snow storage areas are noted on the updated concept plan, and that on-site storage and management would be the responsibility of future landowners or site managers. Based on the concept plans provided, the development would have capacity to exceed the minimum parking requirement of 1 space per townhouse unit. Based on the concept provided, a total of 2 spaces per unit are feasible and are proposed. Just going further, and all of these points are responding to concerns that were raised at the public meeting. With respect to site drainage, a preliminary and final grading and drainage plan would be required in support of any future building permit, and that such plans would have to be stamped and signed by a consulting engineer at the expense of the developer. The amount of green space proposed would greatly exceed the minimum requirements for green space coverage in the zoning bylaw, and therefore should help to buffer against and mitigate for stormwater surges from heavy rainfall events and associate off-site stormwater flows for the site. A total green space coverage of 48% of the total area of the site is proposed, representing a coverage of 0.2 hectares out of the total site area of 0.41 hectares. Aesthetically, the renderings that were received for the development propose a physical design having a roof pitch as well as a general built form that would work to mimic and resemble the scale, massing, and architecture of single detached homes, thus helping to minimize visual impact of a different building topology, i.e. townhomes, along a streetscape that is otherwise within a neighborhood dominated by existing single detached homes. So the next few slides are just reinforcing visually what was mentioned here, and these have all been provided by the applicant. So the first is the sound analysis that the applicants have provided, showing higher intense sound along the roadway here in Kensington Road, and showing a buffering effect from the proposed townhouse units as you proceed west away from Kensington Road. Next is a shadowing analysis that was completed by the applicant, and this shows the path of the sun during the summer and winter solstices, and the shadowing shows the effect during February at peak sunlit hours, so it doesn't show any impact to possible impact to any adjacent or abutting buildings or structures. Next slide is a site area and access layout that was also provided by the applicant, showing proposed access flows through the site, and it's noted the red indicates garbage storage and collection area. Yellow is indicating snow storage during the winter season. And lastly is a green space schematic, which illustrates the 48% coverage for green space for the development. And actually, the last visual is just the concept renderings to illustrate proposed design, building and massing to mimic the streetscape in the surrounding area, noting the pitched roof design for these townhouses. So just to summarize our analysis, some positives. The development is proposed for a combined corner lot and therefore would be less impactful to the existing continuous streetscape, where it otherwise would be proposed within an interior lot within the same neighborhood. Another positive is that the rezoning would facilitate compact urban form and infill development of medium-density housing to meet future needs. Neutral comment is that the proposed development would require an application for building and development permit, as well as application for lot consolidation in order to enable the development to occur. Noted shortcoming is that the closest similarly zoned property, being R3, and property containing similar density and built form is located approximately 200 meters to the southwest, and therefore there currently exists no comparable built form, i.e. townhouses in reasonably close proximity to the site. So to summarize our recommendation, Planning and Heritage Department encourages Planning Board to recommend that City Council approve the following rezoning and official plan amendment requests. Number 1, amend Appendix G, zoning map of the zoning and development bylaw from single detached residential R1L zone to medium density residential townhouse R3T zone for the noted subject properties. And number 2, amend Appendix A, future land use map of the City of Charlottetown official plan from low density residential to medium density residential to facilitate development of the combined site with a new townhouse development, 9 units proposed that would have a common outdoor amenity space to the rear of the property for use by residents. So that is a summary of the application and our recommendation. I'll turn it back to the chair for further discussion.
Thanks, David. Any questions on this application? Councillor Beck?
Yeah, David, just to clarify once again, just to make sure that I'm understanding, any of these major variances are all based on their own individual circumstances and particularities, and do not, just because if this one gets approved, does not necessarily mean that others have to get approved because this one has been approved. Am I correct in that? Is it still the process that we're adhering to or going forward?
Through the chair, Councillor Beck, that's absolutely correct. Every application is evaluated individually, independently on its own merits. We do look at the physical context of what's around it as part of that evaluation. So this is a hypothetical. If this is approved and developed and down the road there's nearby property that one would look to develop with a similar use, you have a new streetscape now that you can provide context to, but we never look to a past decision to inform future decisions. I'll put it that way. So, yep.
Any other questions? Seeing none, does somebody want to move this on to council with staff's recommendation to approve it? Moved by Lee. Seconded by Paul. I'm looking at Dave and waiting for the see the hands going up. Okay, so the resolution's on the floor. Any questions on the resolution?
Just a comment. I'd like to, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really sure whether I'm in favor or opposing this project, but I think it warrants, there's enough in here to warrant further consideration. I think the developer did, to the developer's credit, took the original information, looked at it, provided some sober second thought, addressed some of the areas that were mentioned the first time where we had, quite strong opposition, certainly at the planning board level and at the council level as well, too. So I would move that we put it on and have that discussion once again with the broader council. But I say that in that I'm supportive of moving it on for that purpose, and I'm still not convinced that which way I would vote. But I would certainly welcome the opportunity to have a fulsome discussion. I think there's enough here to say we should support it going on to council and let council ultimately decide. That's my point.
So thanks for that, Councillor Beck. But the resolution on the floor is to support staff's recommendation to move it on to council. So if you don't want to do that part of it, I would suggest that you, because putting your hand up means that you're supporting staff's recommendation to move it on to council, which does not preclude the idea that you can't change your mind at council. That's for sure. I just wanted you to know that in case I've explained it wrong.
Yeah, and I get that. I think some of the understanding, if people who aren't sitting here and being part of this discussion say, well, everyone here is approving it. So, it's got full support of planning board. I don't know I don't want to speak for other people here. I'm just expressing my opinion. And so I'm fully cognizant of the fact that I can change my mind at any time. But I think at this level here, for this discussion, I'm supportive of moving it on, but I'm not supportive of moving it on with 100% blessing for the project. I guess is what I want to get on for clarification and for the public record. So going forward, I think it's important to understand that we are willing to move it on. But yeah.
Great. So it will be reflective in the minutes of what you're saying, but in the actual, just the recommendation, it will have a vote of this to this, but it will definitely be reflective in the minutes. And you won't be the first person to have expressed that and your reason for it moving on to council. So that makes perfect sense. Okay, so if there's no other questions, the question called. All those in favor of moving this on to council? Okay, Sen?
In favor, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. All right. Moving on, David, you're back in the hot seat again. Item number 10, and it is 10 Frida Lane. And just back over to you again, David.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next application, as noted, concerns 10 Frida Lane, PID number 1179670. This is a request for rezoning to rezone subject property from comprehensive development area zone to the R3 zone. The intent is to develop the site with a 3-story, 30-unit apartment building that would have on-site surface level parking. Subject property is currently vacant, containing no buildings or structures, and is surrounded by existing residential development, including single detached dwellings and townhouse dwellings. Surrounding properties consist of single detached dwellings to the east, townhouse, row house dwellings to the west and south, and to the north of the subject property, immediately abutting it, is a single detached dwelling in the R2S zone, which serves as a community convenience store and small-scale grocer, which is the Mount Edward Grocery. Subject property is located approximately 1,200 feet due east of the Royalty Crossing shopping mall, with intervening access to the Confederation Trail to the west. The following image illustrates a site plan of the proposed 3-story, 30-unit apartment building and where the parking and street access are proposed to be located. Mount Edward Road is noted at the bottom of the image here. North is to the right of the image, south to the left. So the parking would be largely shielded from view of Mount Edward Road by the proposed location of the building on the property. The next couple of slides are 3D concept renderings of what the building, the massing and appearance of the building would look like. This would be a view looking internally from Frida Lane, actually both views. And the next, that's all I have actually. Legislative requirements in accordance with section 3.10.4 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw. On March 17th of 2025, notice of the application was circulated to 25 property owners within 100 meters of the subject property to request written comments on the proposed rezoning. No written responses were received in response to the circulation, either for or against the application. Subsequently, on March 27th, 2025, a public meeting of council was held to consider the merits of the application and to provide opportunity for response and feedback from members of the public and council. No significant concerns or opposition were raised at the public meeting concerning the application, and a copy of the meeting minutes were included as part of our report. Feedback that planning received from city departments is summarized as follows. City Fire asked that a more detailed site plan showing hydrant locations will be required prior to future development. Water Sewer expressed no concern, noting that full design drawings for servicing will be required in advance of a future permit. Public Works expressed no concerns with the proposed design and access. Parks and Rec mentioned that cash in lieu of parking requirements have already been met for the development. And Environment and Sustainability noted that if any tree removals are proposed within the city's right-of-way, that they are to be contacted to evaluate proposed removals ahead of any future permit. In analyzing the application, a transition to the R3 zone would allow greater flexibility for housing development on the site outside the restrictions of an approved concept development plan. It's noted that the existing concept plan proposed small-scale neighborhood service commercial development, i.e. a health clinic that the developers have now deemed to be redundant to other nearby service commercial uses in the wider area, and noting the continued demand for new and expanded housing options from the local market. Just a summary of our analysis, some positives on the application. The surrounding neighborhood is already comprised of medium-density residential uses, primarily townhouses, to which the proposed apartment building could be complementary to. The rezoning would facilitate compact urban form and infill development of medium-density housing to meet future needs. Neutral comment is that a building development permit would be required in future to enable the development, and shortcoming is that the proposed development would replace portion of an already approved concept plan that envisioned service commercial uses for the site. So to conclude, the Planning and Heritage Department encourages Planning Board to recommend that City Council approve the following rezoning request, and that is to amend Appendix G, zoning map of the zoning development bylaw from comprehensive development area CDA zone to the medium density residential R3 zone for the subject property located at 10 Frida Lane, PID number 1179670, to facilitate future development of the site with a proposed 3-story, 30-unit apartment building that would have surface level parking. So that's a summary of the application, our recommendation, and I'll turn it back over to the chair for further discussion. Thank you.
Great, thank you, David. Any questions, Councillor McCabe?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. David, we did a full West Royalty traffic study in this area already. And as I understand it, this study already has to be updated because it's surpassed prediction. We're approving an awful lot of density in this area without the updated plan. And I am concerned about the amount of traffic that's moving here. This isn't the applicant's problem on this particular application, you know, whether or not there was going to be much difference in density on a medical center or 30-unit apartment building. But I'm just concerned that maybe we're not getting full information and the full picture. Spencer Drive hasn't been started yet. There's lots of things that are there, but we keep approving development without the full picture of the impact on our roads and our infrastructure and our communities. So where are we? Does that come into play when we continue? I know planning deals with the land issue, but it impacts so much more. Is this taken into consideration as we're moving in these directions? I'm sorry.
Through the chair, Councillor McCabe, when it comes to traffic, we rely heavily on what Public Works has to say because they maintain traffic counts for the main municipal roads like Mount Edward Road. In this case, they responded without any concern. That traffic study would have accounted for the future commercial use at that site. So I think in Public Works zone review and response to us, they probably looked at what was previously approved and considered for that particular block or lot, I'll call it. And in their opinion, they deemed that a 30-unit apartment building substituting for a service commercial use, it would basically be a wash here is essentially what they've indicated. So notwithstanding that, yes, it's become a busy area. Yes, there's a lot of development. Yes, there was a previous traffic plan that didn't account for this particular use. Public Works has looked at that, looked at their own traffic counts and deemed that, you know, this isn't so intense that it makes a significant enough difference if you substitute one for the other, is the best answer I can give. So.
And I agree with you. I would say that they would be, 30 units or a commercial building, and it's not going to impact my decision. I'm just wanting, I guess that's a question I'll have to ask Public Works, because I know that we just did the study. We had the public meeting when I've been on, since I've been on council, and it's already outdated. So we have to do better at doing better prediction, I think. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCabe. Councillor Back?
Yeah, and I don't see this particular building impacting any of that. My concern, and I talked about this at the public consultation as well too, is that we've got, by my rough calculations, about 1,200 doors that are approved to be filled in at various parts along Mount Edward Road. We have another, at full build would be 150 units that we're looking at here a little bit later on tonight, which in and of itself is I think is a great project. I think this is a great project. But it's more the part that we haven't, the projects that have already been approved, that are in the queue, that could potentially surface at any time, and we have an outdated, and I'm not sure, I wasn't on council when the West Royalty traffic study was done. But if you look at the work that's been done at Martha's Court, the potential work that could be done in the two other major developments that we've already approved, and we don't have that information to work with as to how it does impact. So I don't know what the answer is or how best to proceed. Is it a conditional approval waiting on the impact study, or do we delay it until, I have no idea what to do here, but I don't have any problem with this particular development, but we still have to get that updated traffic study done pending the major developments that are potentially coming down the road. And I think for us to have a better idea, we got to know what we're looking at and what factors have to be considered in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Any other questions?
Just a question, Madam Chair.
Sure, yeah, sure, just one second.
and there's-
Just one second, Sen. Do you, Councillor Beck, do you want David to comment on your thoughts there? Or do you want any feedback on that before we turn it over?
Not really. I just think that traffic picture has
Sure.
to be painted for us.
Okay,
And especially given the amount of work that's been done, plus the potential that could be coming down the track too. So, it's always a question. Traffic comes up every time we talk about these developments, and we don't really have an answer. And I guess I'd like to be able to have an answer. Can we accommodate it or can we not accommodate it? We've got another project that has just gone up on, is it Pine Drive, I think? Big unit there, 70-some doors there. So that's going to be filled before long here, right? So we're looking at on a pretty narrow path, street that's heavily used. It was articulated that, traffic congestion, especially at the beginning and the end of work days, is a problem. And it's only going to get exacerbated over the course of time. So I think that's really what I would like to see. I'd like to see that work done sooner rather than later so that we can have a pretty good understanding of what this will all look like down the road.
great, thank you for that. Yeah, I see that. Mike is turning on his mic. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can certainly appreciate where the board and council are coming from on these comments. I would maybe just add, the comments seem to be really around traffic. But I think as a corporation, we need to be thinking about our multimodal options as well. We're working towards a new AT plan with the environment and sustainability team. We're investing heavily in our transit system. These are all pieces to that overall puzzle. So when we're looking at transportation options across the city, we shouldn't just be thinking about traffic itself. We need to be considering all those other mobility options.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, Mike, and I think that's part of what can we do on the AT side, because we've just got our draft AT plan coming out, and we are looking at how do we connect various parts of the city to reduce the traffic reliance. I mean, we are one of the most car-centric communities in Canada, I believe. So we do have to, when I was saying about the traffic impact, I was looking at what are options that we can do, because it is congested. It's going to be congested, and people are going to still drive their cars. And so how do we work around that best? Through active transportation, through public transit. And what does that look like? And what are the options? That's kind of what I'm hoping to understand, is how can we work within an already geographically defined area and say, still achieve, because we want to get to the housing, we want to increase our housing density, that's always been our goal, and we always want to support building projects wherever we can. So how do we do that working within the confines that we have? That's kind of what I'm hoping to understand better. I'm not opposed to any of these projects, I think this is great, but I just trying to think of the whole, putting all those pieces together and making them fit.
Thank you for that, Councillor Beck. Sen, sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off. You go ahead now.
No, that's all right, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think I have few observations here. First of all, yes, all these, be it transit, be it traffic management, these are all linked to the growth and development pattern in the city. However, I just have a procedural question on this. I don't think the planning board has the mandate to even look into those aspects. I think they can take them into consideration, but I don't think, especially when we're looking into land use, official plan and land use bylaw, unless traffic, transportation planning and transit planning is part of that official plan, that's a different consideration. But I think overall, when we look at urban planning, you have to take, as Mike Roos mentioned, it has to be, you have to look into other aspects, and it has to be more comprehensive. But if we are just looking at just the land use aspect of it, I am kind of questioning if the planning board itself, and I'm not talking about the council would have to make a decision on other aspects as well. But if the planning board is actually, has the power to, make determination based on other aspects of urban planning. I'm not talking about land use, but, transportation and transit. And perhaps the director or the manager could clarify on that.
Thanks, Sen, for that. I think your points are duly noted. I just think it's hard sometimes to not color slightly outside the lines every so often, and at least bring up those discussions for future clarity, for what will be, coming down the pipe. But go ahead, David, or Mike, if you want to respond to Sen.
I would maybe just offer, philosophically, we need to communicate with the development community what those expectations are on the front end. We shouldn't be communicating on the back end. From a regulatory perspective, if we want to encourage a positive business environment, we want to make sure that those expectations are clear on the front end so that folks can measure their risk and know what they're investing in. So I guess to keep it brief, I would just suggest that if we want to address those things, we need to codify it in our planning documents, and that would be the scope. So in essence, if we're going to be considering these things, we need to codify it in our zoning bylaw, our official plan, in order to consider it within the discussions here.
Thanks for that, Mike. And on a silver lining note, when we had the first public information session at the library a few weeks back, one of the Post-it notes that somebody did put up on there for the zoning and development bylaw consultants to look at was a more holistic and overarching look at traffic and growth. So I think that those pieces will be covered as we go down the zoning and development bylaw road. But I really appreciate everybody's comments on that. Good conversation. Any other thoughts on this application before we put a resolution on the floor for staff's recommendation or not? So does anybody want to put that resolution? Okay, moved by Lee McDonald, seconded by Paul Conley. So resolutions on the floor to accept staff's recommendation for this application to move on to council. Any questions or question called? All those in favor? Sen?
In favor.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that, folks. Moving on to item number 11, 139 Kensington Road. And that's back over to you again, David, for this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The following application is a request for rezoning concerning two subject properties identified as PID number 278226, 278234, which are located at the corner of Falconwood Drive and Kensington Road. The request is to rezone both properties from the R1S to the R3 zone with the intent to develop the combined sites with a 5-story, 41-unit apartment building. It's noted that if the rezoning is successful, is approved, the development would still require applications for major variance to address height and lot area, and as well application for subdivision for lot consolidation. The unaddressed corner lot, identified as PID 278226, is currently vacant, containing no buildings or structures. The interior lot to the south, which is addressed as 139 Kensington Road, is currently developed with a single-story, single-detached dwelling. The surrounding properties in the area consist mainly of single-detached dwellings. Immediately abutting the subject properties to the west is an existing 3-story apartment building, which is on a property in the R3 zone. That would be the property shown here. And across the road from the site is the Belvedere Golf Course, which is shown in green on the image here. And there is an established grocery store, Charlottetown Foodland, as well as a gas station, being a Shell gas station located in the MUC zone on Walker Drive, which are approximately 500 feet to the south of the subject properties, which is off of the map image on the screen shown there. Following is a site plan for what the proposed development would look like. The apartment building, shaded in gray here, would be located to the east of the site. Surface level parking shown here as well. There'd be a combination of surface level and underground parking for the apartment building, and it would utilize an existing access onto Falcon River Road here. This is already in existence that would be shared with the existing apartment building to the west shown here. And there'd be no access onto Kensington Road. The next few slides illustrate 3D concept renderings of what the building would look like. The following two renderings show profiles of the building from Kensington Road. So this is the east and north facing sides of the building. Next image on the left is showing the internal facing west side of the building to the parking lot. And the image on the right is another image facing to Kensington Road. In accordance with Section 310.4 of the zoning bylaw, on March 17th of 2025, notice of the application was circulated to 33 property owners within 100 meters of the subject property, requesting written comments on the proposed rezoning application. There was only one letter received in response to circulation, which was a neutral letter stating neither support or opposition to the application. On March 27th, 2025, a public meeting of council was held to consider the merits of the application, to provide opportunity for response and feedback from the public and council on the application. Concerns regarding traffic, site access, and overall density were raised at the public meeting concerning the application. A copy of the meeting minutes were included as an attachment to our planning report. In terms of comments from city departments, City Fire indicated that sufficient access and local fire flow, as well as sufficient number of hydrants exist to service the development. Water sewer utility expressed no concern and stated that full design drawings for servicing would be required in advance of a future building permit. Public Works stated no concern regarding the intensity of the development and that the existing road access could be utilized. Parks and Rec indicated no parkland or cash in lieu requirement is needed for this development, and Environment and Sustainability stated that if any tree removals are to occur within the city's right-of-way, that department staff are to be contacted to evaluate that ahead of the future permit. Environment Sustainability staff have identified existing city trees that are present near the site within the public right-of-way. Just paraphrasing a bit from our planning report in terms of our analysis, the proposed 5-story apartment building would be located lengthwise along the east side of the property at the frontage with Kensington Road. The building is proposed to be inward facing to the west, where the internal surface parking lot would be shielded from view with respect to Kensington Road to the east by the building and would be largely obscured from Falconwood Drive to the north, given the proposed layout of the site. The development is proposed to use an existing street access onto Kensington Road to the north. Therefore, no new access would be required. The existing access would function as shared access with the apartment building on the parcel to the west, and therefore a reciprocal access easement would have to be registered among the two properties if currently there is not one in existence. Development of an apartment building at this location represents an very efficient use of existing municipal infrastructure on a per unit basis, greatly exceeding what would be possible with lower density housing types permitted by the existing zoning that is in place. Development of the partially vacant property with the proposed new apartment building immediately next door to an apartment building having similar massing would therefore ensure development of a type that is harmonious with some of its immediate surroundings. So just a summary of our analysis, the rezoning would facilitate compact urban form and infill development of higher density housing to meet future needs. The proposed higher density development would be located adjacent to and abutting a site containing an existing higher density apartment use. Neutral comment is that the development would require an application, a building development permit, as well as application for lot consolidation, as well as a major variance with respect to maximum permitted building height, as well as minimum lot area in the R3 zone in order to enable the development to occur. Shortcoming is that the proposed apartment building would have potential to increase traffic counts in the area. However, being located on a corner lot bounded by local and collector roads allows the option for the splitting of traffic impacts, and it's noted that Public Works has responded with no concern with respect to traffic, and that they've deemed that the proposed access, given available data, the existing access is acceptable based on the physical location of the site. So to conclude, our recommendation to the Board, Planning and Heritage Department encourages Planning Board to recommend that City Council approve the following rezoning request, and that is to amend Appendix G, zoning map of the zoning and development bylaw, to rezone the subject properties identified as PID numbers 278226 and 278234 from the current single detached residential R1S zone, and to place them in the medium-density residential R3 zone to facilitate future development of the combined properties with a proposed 5-story, 41-unit apartment building that would have both surface level and underground parking. So that is a summary of the application and our recommendation. I'll turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Not to bring up the T word again, but in the report, I see that Public Works has shown that they don't have concerns in terms of parking, but did they come up with that conclusion because they did a traffic study, or was that just what they believed with their already existing knowledge?
Through the chair to respond to that, on my knowledge, there's no specific local traffic study that was done. That Public Works would be relying on their annual traffic counts that they take to help to partially inform their comments. So to answer no, there was no like site specific or area specific traffic impact study that would have been completed here. No.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Okay, so staff is recommending that they support this application, and they're recommending the planning board support it and move it on to council. Does anybody want to put that resolution on the floor? Moved by Councillor Beck, seconded by Dave Esri. Okay, so the resolution and recommendation is on the floor. Any questions on the resolution? If not, we can call the question. All those in favor? Sen?
In favor.
Okay, so that will move on to council with planning board's recommendation to support staff's recommendation. Okay, moving on to number 12. David, it's you again. This is an application for a zoning map, zoning and development bylaw change amendment. So over to you again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following application is application for rezoning and official plan amendment for 3 abutting undressed properties on Evelyn Street, PID numbers 117-8193, 117-8201, and 117-8219. Request is to rezone the 3 properties from the R2S to the R3 zone, also changing the land use designation in the OP from low-density residential to medium-density residential, with the intent to develop each of the individual sites with a 4-unit stacked townhouse building, so 12 units total across the 3 properties. If the rezoning is approved, the developments would meet all of the regulations of the R3 zone and would therefore require no further planning approvals, such as a variance, etc. Some site context here. Subject properties are vacant lots that form part of a greenfield or new subdivision development that is currently still under construction and expansion at the present time based on past approvals. All of the properties within the existing plan of subdivision are in the R2S zone, which allows for residential dwellings in the form of single detached, semis, and duplex dwellings, but does not have allowance for stacked townhouse dwellings as proposed. The subject properties are located in close proximity to Norwood Road to the west that contains primarily single detached dwellings that have been established for some time. The subject properties are also located about 700 meters north of the arterial highway bypass via connection from Norwood Road, which is shown on the image to the left there. Next 3 slides illustrate the site plans that the applicants have provided. So this is the westmost lot, lot 24, the center lot, lot 25, and the eastern lot, lot 26. So as you can see, the same building plan, generally it's the same building plan as proposed for all 3 of the lots, being a 4-unit stacked townhouse. The next slide illustrates a 3D rendering of what the general design would look like from the street. So you can see 2 units on the ground and walk up to 2 units on the second floor. In terms of our legislative requirements under the zoning bylaw, on March 17th, a notice of the application was circulated to 9 surrounding property owners within 100 meters of the subject property to request written comments on the proposed rezoning application. No letters were received in response to circulation. On March 27th, 2025, a public meeting of council was held to consider the merits of the application and provide opportunity for response and feedback from members of the public and council. It's noted that no members of the public spoke or provided feedback at the public meeting. However, several questions of a technical nature were asked by members of council and answered by staff, and a copy of the minutes was included as attachment to our planning report in the agenda package. The following slide is a summary of the feedback we received from city departments. Just going in order, City Fire indicated sufficient access and local fire flow and hydrants exist to service the proposed development. City Fire has no concern for the increased density as the street is not being altered. Water and sewer indicated no concerns and indicated if the townhouses are to be sold separately from each other, they will each require their own water and sewer service, ideally not to be placed under the driveway. Public Works indicated no concern with regard to road access and stated that the driveway widths as proposed are all appropriate. Parks and Rec indicated no concern. Parkland allocation has already been approved for the wider subdivision. And Environment and Sustainability noted requested that they be circulated on planting plans for frontage where planting requirements are outlined, being 1 tree per 10 meters of lot frontage. Just going into our analysis, it's noted that the current zoning limits housing options to semi-detached and duplex dwellings in terms of maximum unit count on an individual lot. Transitioning to the R3 zone would offer option to permit stacked townhouse dwellings on each of the 3 properties, thereby increasing efficiency with respect to municipal services. The size of each of the 3 lots to which the rezoning would apply are sufficient to permit the proposed 4-unit stacked townhouse building on each property, such that each building would meet all regulations of the R3 zone. The subject properties are located immediately abutting to one another, and therefore the proposed rezonings would make for a consistency in built form within one specific area of the subdivision, representing a moderately higher density than is otherwise permitted through the current R2S zoning. And just summarizing our analysis, some positives: the rezoning would facilitate compact urban form and greenfield development of medium-density housing to meet future needs. The proposed development has been found to meet all technical requirements of city departments. Neutral comment is that a future building development permit would be required to enable the development. Shortcoming is that the proposed stacked townhouse units have potential to increase traffic counts in the area. However, Public Works have offered no concern with respect to traffic impacts and proposed access given available data, and have deemed the proposed driveway accesses as acceptable and able to meet their technical requirements. So to conclude, our recommendation is that the Planning and Heritage Department encourages Planning Board to recommend that City Council approve the following rezoning and official plan amendment requests. Number 1, amend Appendix G, zoning map of the zoning and development bylaw from the low-density residential single R2S zone to the medium-density residential R3 zone for the subject properties identified as lots 24, 25, and 26 on Evelyn Street, PID number 1178193, 1178201, and 118219. And number 2, to amend Appendix A, future land use map of the City of Charlottetown official plan from low-density residential to medium-density residential to facilitate the development of each of the 3 lots identified as lots 24, 25, and 26 on Evelyn Street with a 4-unit building, stacked townhouse dwellings. So that is summary of our report and recommendation to the board. I'll turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that, David. Any questions for anybody? Okay. Jen, do you have any questions? Sen?
No question, Madam Chair.
Okay, thanks. Does somebody want to put this?
Just
oh,
one
go
thing.
ahead, Councillor
So
Beck.
there's 12 units, and, I don't know whether they're rentals or for sale, or I don't think that really matters, but if they were to be, say they are, I guess, let's say the owner did decide to sell them, can they be sold as individual townhouses? Is that the way that would work, David? And then they would all have to have their own, would they all have their own PIDs with that? I'm just trying to understand that for.
David, would they have to almost do that whole condo thing first? Yeah, so they'd have to take the 4 townhouses and condominiumize them first, and then that would prompt 4 PIDs, one per townhouse. So there's a bit of a process, but it is doable that they could sell them individually.
But
as
right now,
condos.
this is a proposal for 12 rentals, or 12,
Or potentially it could be that somebody's buying like the 4 together.
Right.
I think. I don't know what the long-term plan is, but
Yeah.
if they did go to that next step.
Okay.
That would be the process to
they
do
have to
that whole condo.
condominiumize.
Yeah.
Is that a word?
I don't know, but say it's.
It's a good word, though.
I know.
That was good thinking on your feet there,
I
Madam
made it
Chair.
up.
Huh?
Condominiumize.
Planning Department ease.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, if somebody would like to move that, moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Paul Conley, that we accept staff's recommendation and that planning board move this on to council for their consideration and approval. Any questions on the resolution? If not, all those in favor?
In favor.
Okay, great. So thank you for that. Now we'll move on to number 13. 161 to 167 Mount Edward Road. David, it's you again I'll turn it right over to you. It's another zoning map, zoning and development bylaw amendment.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Following application is a request to rezone the three subject properties addressed as 161 to 167 Mount Edward Road, PID number 390260, 390237, and 566976. Request is to rezone all three properties from the R2S to the Comprehensive Development Area CDA zone in the zoning bylaw, and also to change the land use designation under the official plan from low-density residential to comprehensive planning area, with the intent to develop the combined site with future apartment buildings. If the rezoning is approved, the applicants intend to proceed with phase one of the development, which would be a 4-story, 47-unit apartment building located to the east of the site, which we'll get into on the site plans in a little bit. The subject properties are interior lots, which are on the west side of Mount Edward Road, being south of the T intersection with Pine Drive, which is right here. The three subject properties highlighted in red. Parcels are identified, the parcels identified as PID 390260, that's this one here, and 390237, which would be the other large one to the south here, are currently vacant and undeveloped. Contain existing single detached dwellings. The parcel identified as 566976, the small one shown here, is currently vacant and undeveloped. The combined size of the subject properties is approximately 1.25 hectares or 3.09 acres, and have a total of 84 meters or 275 feet of frontage on the west side of Mount Edward Road. The land uses directly north and to the east across Mount Edward Road are entirely residential in nature, containing single detached dwellings in the R2S zone. The subject properties are bounded entirely to the south and west by a single property addressed as 153-155 Mount Edward Road, which wraps around to the rear of the subject properties and is within the institutional zone. That's the parcel shown in blue here. This property contains the Christian Reformed Church, as well as a sizable area of privately owned woodland, which is to the rear of the property here. Following is a proposed site plan illustrating the location of the phase one development, which would be the 47-unit apartment building shown here. New access onto Mount Edward Road is proposed here, with the majority of the parking internal to the site and would be shielded from view of Mount Edward Road by the proposed building. Second phase two building is proposed here, which would be subject to future consideration. Next couple of slides illustrate what the 47-unit apartment building would look like. The image on the left shows the east-facing view of the building fronting onto Mount Edward Road. The image on the right shows what the south side of the building would resemble with the new access onto Mount Edward Road. These are renderings of the internal west-facing side of the building and the surface parking area. The Planning and Development Department circulated a letter on March 17th, which was a notice of application to 33 property owners within 100 meters of the subject property to request written comments on the proposed rezoning and official plan amendment applications. In response to that circulation, 3 letters of opposition and 1 neutral letter were received. In accordance with Section 3.10.3 of the zoning bylaw, on March 27th, a public meeting of council was held to consider the merits of the application and provide opportunity for response and feedback from members of the public and council. At the public meeting, concerns regarding traffic, site access, overall density, emergency access, and impacts to existing green space on private lands were raised. The next slide is a summary of the comments and feedback that we received from city departments. City Fire noted that the current site plan shows only one point of access onto Mount Edward Road and that a secondary means of access must be provided. No hydrant is found within 45 meters of the property, and it's noted that fire code requires a hydrant within 45 meters of the building's fire department connection. Water sewer expressed no immediate concerns. The utility will require will require a review of full design drawings once available in support of any future permit application. Public Works stated that the development may require a traffic impact study in support of a future permit and that a road access permit will be required. Parks and Rec indicated no parkland requirement as this is a redevelopment of properties, and Environment and Sustainability requested to have them circulated on planting plans for frontage of where planting requirements are outlined, 1 tree per 10 meters of lot frontage, and that consideration should be provided for the preservation of existing private trees on the property. In terms of our analysis, development of an apartment building at this location would represent a very efficient use of existing municipal infrastructure on a per unit basis, greatly exceeding what would be possible with lower density housing types permitted by the existing R2S zoning that is in place. While differing in terms of prevailing built form with the surrounding neighborhood, the building would be oriented facing west and internal to the site and away from the majority of single detached dwellings in the immediate area. Due to its location to the east of the site, all on-site parking and any visual impacts due to parking will be obscured and shielded from view of the surrounding homes. The future development will be required to put in place either a fence or vegetative buffer with respect to the abutting residential use to the north at 169 Mount Edward Road, which is, I'll note that the residents at that property issued several of the comments in opposition to the proposal at following the public meeting, as per the requirements of the zoning and development bylaw. And just summarizing our analysis further, some positives. The proposed apartment development, 47 units belonging to Phase 1, would help address housing options for a growing population within Charlottetown. It's also noted that the proposed development is close to parks, shopping, outdoor recreational uses, and public transit, as well as the University of Prince Edward Island campus to the southwest. The proposed development would require both an application for building permit as well as application for lot consolidation to enable the development to occur. Future application for future phases of the development concept plan will be required, and or if any material changes are proposed to the approved development concept plan. Shortcoming is that the proposed apartment building has potential to increase traffic counts in the area, and as a condition of future building permit, a traffic impact study may be required. It's also noted that a road access permit will also be required as per Public Works comments. So to conclude, our recommendation is such: the Planning and Heritage Department encourages Planning Board to recommend that City Council approve the following rezoning and official plan amendment requests. Number 1, amend Appendix G, zoning map of the zoning and development bylaw to rezone the subject properties identified as 161, 167 Mount Edward Road from the current low-density residential single R2S zone and placing them in the comprehensive development area CDA zone. And secondly, to amend Appendix A, future land use map of the City of Charlottetown from low-density residential to comprehensive planning area to facilitate the development of up to 150 apartment dwelling units on a combined site across 2 phases of development, with Phase 1 constituting a 4-story apartment building having 47 dwelling units. So that is a summary of the application and comments and feedback received, a recommendation. I'll turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Councillor McCabe.
And maybe it's just because we're on application 13. Good job, Deputy. But I'm confused why we have applications in front of us tonight, right? That they want to change the use, they show pictures of their apartment. And then when we look at recommendations like a second roadway needs to be in for fire, it may require a future traffic study from Public Works. We just talked about 2 applications ago on that Mount Edward Road corridor around traffic and stuff. So why are we looking at applications that aren't even going to be able to be approved? Like, why are they showing us pictures and telling us what's going to be there? I'm just curious. I'm not trying to be challenging or difficult, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Through the chair, this one is a bit unique and different from the others in that the transition that's being proposed is into the CDA zone, which requires an approved concept plan. Oftentimes, those developments have a number of conditions attached to them, which are codified through the accompanying development agreement. Again, The city departments haven't stated any strong opposition. However, there's some technical hurdles that may have to be resolved. Those could be resolved through, future conditions on permit, conditions through a development agreement that would have to apply here because we're dealing with a proposal to place the lands within the CDA, which opens up some additional, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, that zone, in that you can customize it to what you want, but you have to go with what's approved. And if you want to make any minor, more than a minor change, you have to bring it back through council again. So while if this is approved, there would be conditions attached to it, and it's conceivable if any major changes are proposed, it would have to go back through the process again because of the nature of the CDA zone and the CDA process and how it's structured in the bylaw. So.
Okay, so it may require a traffic study, so he doesn't know what the outcome or I'm just wondering again, and he's aware that he's going to require a second access point at some point. I just still, I'm finding it until those things are answered, why are we looking, I'd be more apt to say put a deferral on until we get, either it requires a traffic study or it doesn't require a traffic study. Maybe. And I'm just thinking that maybe there should be a plan where this second access point is going to come out. It's just really hard to approve a plan that's not complete. And whether it's because they have to go in and show us those plans, I'm going to have a hard time until we have more information. So I would recommend a deferral, but.
David, do you have any comment on Councillor McCabe's questions, or will we just leave it until she's put a deferral on the floor? She'll need a seconder, and then we could discuss the deferral if somebody wants to second her deferral. Okay, so it's seconded by Paul. So now we have a deferral for this application on the floor. So from there, perhaps, David, you could comment on Councillor McCabe's concerns around the deferral.
Go ahead, Dave.
If I may, through the chair, I'll just note, and I kind of alluded to this before, that the request for a traffic impact study, sorting out the accesses, these can be sorted out through the CDA process. I think it's partially for that reason that some of the departments responded the way that they did and how they did. I'll just note that you can put a deferral forward for sure. And then we can give this more time. But I mean, there's an option to work this through the CDA process because of how it's built in the bylaw. So I'll just offer that as, additional perspective on this, I guess. So, yeah.
I think we need to do better. I just think that the CDA process and stuff, and I appreciate that. It's just for me, when I'm voting on a project, for me to be confident in my vote, I'd like to know the impact that's being brought up as concerns.
Madam Chair, can I say something? Yeah, so under a normal circumstance, the access point, the hydrant location, the potential traffic impact study, they would all be determined at the staff level, correct? They don't come back for approval. So we've got pretty much everything except those components which have to meet the staff approval level. So I don't know I think we've got enough information here to go ahead and put it in the hands of the professional staff to say, okay, we're going to address these areas by whatever the staff would satisfactorily do it. So personally, I think we have enough information to go ahead and do that. The question is, so I wouldn't support the deferral. I would suggest that we just go along and approve the project conditionally upon the installation of the fire hydrant and the updated access plan. So just on those two things, if the other access point, I assume, would be to the north. So that cuts into the building. They would have to, I assume that's going to cut into some of the space availability in the building, one would have to assume, am I correct?
Through the chair, just to answer that, Councillor Beck, we did have a prior concept, an older one that did show 2 access points, but what the applicants, it was like a draft plan. So what the applicants, what you see before you is what they opted to come in with formally.
Okay,
I think, conceivably, these parking spaces here are about 6 meters long. And if you reconfigured the parking, you could shift the building
okay,
up to 6, 7 meters, possibly further south, and that would open up more space for a second access. We did see a concept plan showed that building footprint and did show 2 points of access, but for whatever reason,
okay,
this is what they formally updated to us in the application to bring forward, and that's what we got comment on from city departments. So there was an older concept that showed that it was possible.
okay.
And again, it can be reworked through that CDA process, and if there's conditions put on any approval, we won't release a permit unless those conditions are satisfied, right?
Okay.
So, yep.
All right, thanks for that, Dave. The second thing is on the hydrants, is that the responsibility of the developer to install those, or do we install them in the city?
Through the chair, my understanding is the city would install them, but it would be at the expense of the developer, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Okay, thank you
good.
for that, Councillor Beck. So there.
Can
there
I
is-
just add one more thing, just?
No.
It would reiterate, I just want to reiterate I think, it kind of goes to what I was talking about with that other one on 10 Frida Lane. I think we're at the point where we got to get that. I think this should be, we have to get that done. And because it said the development may require a traffic impact study. Given everything that we have going on, given all the conversation that we've had here today, I do know the councillor for the ward shares similar concerns about that, and he's been beating that drum for quite a while and in terms of doing that. So I know there's going to be questions about that as we go forward. So I think we're probably at a time where we should just, given where we are with all the potential developments coming, I think we should just go ahead and get that address, not only this part of Matterwood Road, but the other parts as well, too. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
I think that we'll go with Bob, and then over to you, Paul. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it just seems to me we've approved things in the past where the approvals were going to come later on. And it doesn't seem any different than some of the other ones. And I don't see the point in deferring something and delaying it for something that's going to come along anyway. So I wouldn't support the deferral.
Go ahead, Paul.
It just seems a little confusing. There's still 2 significant issues that are in play: the traffic study and the secondary access. So it seems to me that with those 2 outstanding issues, I've never seen a proposal of this sort approved before, whenever there are 2 big issues on the table that are not resolved.
So I have, and we've had these conversations before, and it's always been that conversation around why it feels like we're partially approving something when we're going to be seeing this file again because it's the comprehensive development area. So there's always a bit of a cluster when it comes to these applications and confusion. So I have seen them come through here many times before, and similar conversations around, well, why are we approving something when it's, there's so many things that haven't been approved yet. And we've always come back, the staff have always come back with the same explanation. Those things will be revisited as the process goes along, because that's all part and parcel of a CDA rezoning. I hope I explained that right, David. Go ahead.
Through the chair, I'll just add that what's being considered to be approved, but recommended to be approved, is just to change the zoning. It's not necessarily to approve the precise layout or the site plan. You're not approving the site plan, you're approving the zoning change to enable them to develop like an apartment building in this case through the CDA zone and CDA process.
Yep. And the only reason that the actual apartment building is in there is to give some context to why they've even applied to have a CDA zoning change. Anywho,
Is this
Go
not
ahead.
zoned for apartment buildings already, this land? I guess that's where I was confused, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, this is only zoned R2, so you can only build yeah, it's not, yeah.
Madam Chair, may I have a question?
sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. David, this is not a concurrent application, is it?
Through the chair, no, it's not a concurrent application. It's only for rezoning, Sen, and there's no additional amendment or relief being requested here, no.
Okay, thank you. Dave. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So now do we want to get this vote done with for the deferral?
I
Now
want to
that-
withdraw it.
Oh, okay. How does that work?
No, I'm just joking, we can vote on it, but I'm not going to support it.
Okay, so all those in favor of Councillor McCabe's deferral? Okay. Motion failed, or resolution failed. Back to the, oh, it's getting late, folks. Okay, back to our regular discussion. And so staff are recommending we accept staff's recommendation and move this on to council. Does somebody want to put a motion on the floor to accept staff's recommendation? Moved by Lee, seconded by Bob Kenny. So now the resolution is on the floor to accept staff's recommendation to move this on to council. And do I have any questions on the resolution? If not, all those in favor?
In favor.
Great, okay. Moving right along.
Can I just get an answer to the question?
Certainly.
What will we do with, who undertakes the traffic study, who initiates the requests? I guess what I would like to see is that we get this traffic study done. So I don't want to stop the development of this project or anything, but I do want, how do we go about, does that have to come out through a formal request to Public Works Committee? I'm just wondering. Maybe it's a former chair of Public Works could.
I think
So I can
probably,
I can give a stab on this. As this application weaves its way through staff, staff will then put this forward to the appropriate department that will do the traffic study. Is that correct, David?
Through the chair, Public Works would request that one's required, and typically the TIS or traffic impact study would be done by a third-party engineer at the expense of the developer. Typically, the city wouldn't do it. The city would supply its data, though, like the statistics that the traffic counts that Public Works does every single year, different points of the year, different roads and places in the city. They would flow that information through, but it would be a third-party consulting engineer hired and paid by the developer to actually put that like localized study together, but you'd be using city data because it's for private development, right? If you did it otherwise, the city would be paying its own staff to do work for a private developer, for a study for that developer, so it would be a conflict of interest, right? We would provide the data, but it would be an outside engineer, a consultant like a Stantec or something like that, that would do it for the developer at the request of the city, because we want to see what that looks like based on what the development will cause, right? So, yeah.
I think that's for individual, but for you, I think, Norm, when you're looking at the bigger picture of Mount Edward Road, it would be you would want to get that vetted through Public Works as far as looking for an update on that West Royalty traffic study.
Yeah.
Where it's at. We had talked about, I think we even went to tender on getting someone to do a second part of that. So just to look for an update, I would request it via.
That's what I'd like. So on that note then, is that how does that get started? Do I have to make that formal request through the chair of Public Works? So, and do I do that, or I do that because it's my request? Okay, Good, no, thanks.
Hey, getting back to the agenda. Our final item on the agenda, number 14, Malpec Road Development. And David, you're on the hot seat again.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and last one for tonight. The following is a request for rezoning and official plan amendment to rezone two subject properties on the east side of Malpec Road, unaddressed properties identified as PID 134-957 and 118-0348. Request to rezone both of the properties from the R2S zone to the Comprehensive Development Area CDA zone, and also to change the land use designation in the official plan from low-density residential to comprehensive planning area with the intent to develop the combined site and that should read a future plan of subdivision, not future apartment buildings, sorry. If the rezoning and OPA are approved, the applicants intend to proceed with the development of a three-phase plan of subdivision that would contain approximately 800 dwelling units across the combined properties. Context for the sites: the subject properties have frontage on the east side of Malpec Road, approximately 160 meters, 525 feet of total frontage that is split between frontage to the north and south with intervening parcels in between. The split frontage having existing residential uses within the R2S and R1L zones. Subject properties are currently vacant, containing no buildings or structures, and historically have been used for agriculture in the past, containing fields under cultivation, as well as existing woodlots. Natural water course also bisects a portion of the property running north to south, which is situated approximately 600 feet in from the Malpec Road frontage. Surrounding development is mixed in terms of format, with development on the east side of Malpec Road consisting of highway-oriented rural residential uses on larger lots, as well as a developed plan of subdivision which partially abuts to the south. That's Country View Estates. That would be the subdivision shown here in yellow. And across the road to the west of the site is the Hidden Valley residential plan of subdivision currently under active development. So a portion of that is caught here, the developed portion, and the phase 3, which is generally here. So following is a concept plan for the plan of subdivision, 3 phases that are shown in pink, blue, and yellow. Proposed future open green spaces shown in green. And the access points, 2 access points shown to the north and the south, and the noted water course is shown here in the blue line. In accordance with section 3.10.4 of the zoning development bylaw, on March 17th, notice of the application was circulated to 35 surrounding property owners within 100 meters of the subject property to request written comments on the proposed rezoning and official plan amendment applications. No written responses were received in response to the circulation. In accordance with section 3.10.3 of the zoning development bylaw, on March 27th, a public meeting of council was held to consider the merits of the applications and provide opportunity for response and feedback. At the public meeting, there were concerns raised regarding traffic, access to schools, and school population planning were also raised by members of the public and council. And record of those minutes is contained in an attachment to our planning report in the agenda package. Feedback that was received from city departments is as follows. City Fire stated that access to the development is via 2 proposed new streets, each connecting to Malpec Road. Both streets should be constructed during phase 1 so that there's always 2 access points. Ideally, the south side new street should also connect to a phase 2 street somewhere so that there are always 2 options for entrance and exit as the development proceeds. Water Sewer stated that the developer will require a downstream analysis for sewer system impacts. A development of this size may require upgrades to the existing sewer system. Public Works stated while no access approval is required, and the reason for that is that Malpec Road is under jurisdiction of Provincial Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. Public Works stated that they feel that there should be consideration given to what a future north-south connector road may look like if and when the 2 parcels adjacent to it are developed. It would be encouraged to have the main roads at least include active transportation facilities. Example of that would be bike lanes. And then the minor streets consider ways to include traffic calming features on the streets. Parks and Recreation responded saying that the proposed green space or parkland is currently proposed as being split into 3 areas, which they would not likely be interested in accepting. A development of this size, 91.5 acres, Parks and Rec would be requiring that a single parcel of property for the green space or parkland allocation be provided, which would amount to 9.15 acres with no development limitations, i.e. environmental buffer zones. And Environment and Sustainability provided a number of comments and feedback, which are provided in our planning report. In terms of our analysis, the current R2S zone limits housing topologies to semi-detached and duplex dwellings as the form of maximum permitted built density. Transition to the CDA zone would offer the option to permit a much greater range and diversity of housing options, including townhouses and apartments, subject to an approved development concept plan. The developers have suggested a variety of housing types and mixed forms to provide for diversity of housing types and options, and have proposed to incorporate a number of road stubs or road connections for future connectivity to other undeveloped lands to the north and south of the subject properties, such that future development can more freely and easily integrate with what is proposed. While the development proposal for the subject properties does not propose affordable housing by definition, it is representative of a more compact form of development that provides wider housing options to residents beyond the predominant single detached dwellings currently available in the general area. As per the comments received from city departments, notably Parks and Recreation and Public Works have asked that adjustments be made to the subdivision concept plan. As well, Environment and Sustainability, as well as the Water Sewer Utility, have requested that specific studies be completed prior to site development commencing. Planning staff are in agreement with all comments and recommendations made, and most significant among these is the requirement by Parks and Rec that the required public park space for the entire development be consolidated into a single larger 9.15 acre sized park that is free of any environmental hazards, buffers, or restrictions, such that it can be properly developed by the city for recreational use, i.e. sports fields and etc. Just further summary of our analysis, some positives. The proposed development would create a new focal point through a new local neighborhood and would complement existing development and new construction underway in the area and allows for connectivity to adjacent undeveloped lands in the future. The property is in proximity to a major highway and arterial road, Malpeque Road, providing direct and immediate access into Charlottetown. The proposed development neutral comments include that the proposed development would require both applications for building development permit as well as application for subdivision lot consolidation in order to enable the development to occur. Future application for future phases of the development concept plan will be required, and or if any significant material changes are proposed to the approved development concept plan. Shortcomings include that the plan of subdivision will require upgrades to the local road network from provincial DTI with respect to access and new intersections. The proposed plan of subdivision currently illustrates fragmented parkland areas, and it is the request, but also requirement of the Parks and Recreation Department that these parkland areas as proposed be consolidated into a single approximate 9-acre sized public park site on the plan. So to conclude, our recommendation, Planning and Heritage Department encouraged Planning Board to recommend that City Council approve the following rezoning and official plan amendment requests. That is, amend Appendix G, zoning map of the zoning development bylaw to rezone the unaddressed subject properties identified as PID numbers 134957 and 1180348 from the current low-density residential single R2S zone, placing them in the comprehensive development area CDA zone, and to also amend Appendix A, the future land use map of the City of Charlottetown official plan, from low-density residential to comprehensive planning area to facilitate the future development of the subject properties with a new plan of subdivision proposed across 3 phases of development, having approximately 800 dwelling units, commercial development, and public green space 2 new road connections along the east side of Malpec Road are proposed in order to facilitate the future development. And I'll just note that, comments from Parks and Rec certainly factor into this and can form a condition of future approval. So I'll turn it back over to the chair and open it up for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for that, David. And once again, this is one of those situations where they're looking to rezone the land from the low-density residential and plunk it into comprehensive development for future development over the coming years. So we definitely, as a planning board and as staff, will be seeing this application more than once, because right now, the only thing they're looking for approval on is to move it from low density and plunk it into CDA. So, any questions? Yes.
I do have a question.
Just 1 second, we got Dave here first. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I just had a question regarding the parkland. So has the developer agreed to this, or is that something that will be a requirement that they will have to agree to? Or how does that work?
So I can probably address that one. There's rules and regulations around how many pieces, how much acreage needs to be required for parkland.
Yep.
So I suffice to say that that's part of the whole process. I don't think they have any choice. You have to have a suitable amount of parkland for development of this size. David, do you have anything to add to that for Dave?
Yeah, through the chair, just for Dave and for everyone's information. The parkland piece is a bit of a negotiated process. However, we defer to Parks and Rec to lay out their requirements. They've said that they would want the developers are required to provide 10% of the total area for parkland purposes, but they can also provide cash in lieu. So they can provide no parkland and a cash in lieu, or a mix of the two. So they could do 5%, 8%, but then a paid portion to make up the difference. So in this case, Parks and Rec have asked for the full 10%. Not to say that there couldn't be further negotiation on that. However, the developers have shown 10%, but they've shown it in a fragmented fashion. And Parks and Rec would rather see one single site. So there's enough land base there for the developers to play with to probably reconfigure things. They're not fully aware of what those impacts might be, but it's not to say that it can't be done, if that helps. Yeah.
And also one follow-up, is it my understanding that the parkland is turned over to the city, or is it retained by the developer?
Yeah, that's what happens.
Okay.
And historically, it's not often that Parks and Rec will agree to the cash in lieu. When they do, it's usually because there's already ample city parks in the area, and then that money would go towards increasing the, and maintaining the parks that are already existing in the areas. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Beck.
Yeah, I would really, I think that's it should be, I fully support that, with the parkland being developed. I think didn't they reference something about 14% was green space? When you looked at the water course, there was an area that was close to the highway, I think that was really, if I remember correctly from the public meeting, there was down around there, that's kind of, there's a water course that goes through there, and I think there has to be a road that traverses that, and am I correct in that, Dave?
Through the chair, Councillor Beck. So the current concept plan, down by the highway, this is a bit of a low line, a wet area.
Yeah.
They're showing 3 spaces. So here, like a little parkette, I would call it, but the vast majority is to
Right.
the rear of the site.
Yeah. Bordering the trail.
Yeah, but Parks and Rec, they want to see like one large parcel that
Yeah.
they could do legitimate sports fields on.
Yeah.
There's not really a major city park in the immediate vicinity, so for that reason, to dovetail on what the deputy mayor said, I don't think Parks and Rec is interested in taking cash in lieu for that reasons.
And I wouldn't support that either.
Yeah.
I just have a question, Dave, about the public transit under the environment sustainability piece. We do have the rapid housing initiative that is going up, affordable housing, which is going further west, going up, whatever it is, up towards Winslow Irving there anyway, just to give you a bit of a bearing. So one of the things that when we looked back at that, we approved that, or we were very interested in that because it was going to be on a transit corridor. Now we've got a major development coming in with, 800 doors, combination of commercial. I think when they were saying there, it said plans for, if this development is approved, the city would expect residents to request service inside the subdivision. And plans for roads with possible bus stops, et cetera, should consider future transit needs. I'd like to see that in there too. Again, it's a should. I don't know if that's a recommendation or a condition. But I think given the magnitude of the scope of this project, and given the fact that we're trying to enhance our transit usage around corridors moving forward with our new OP and stuff like that, I would think that because I think we did something similar on the Hidden Valley. I think they have a bus stop in there, if I remember, when we approved those 10 60-unit apartment buildings. We put something similar on the other side. And given that this is an even bigger project with a little bit more complexities to it, I think we should be looking at building the capacity for the transit system if we're going to be increasing our usage, or hopefully increasing our usage along a major transit corridor. I think we should be looking at including something like that in here. So I'd like to see that in as well, in addition to the parkland piece.
Thanks for that, Councillor Beck. A question for you, Dave. I don't think we're not there yet. We can't actually stipulate that at this stage of the game, can we? Or can we? Because if we can, that's great. Great point from Councillor Beck. But I'm not, can we actually do that at this stage? Put those requests in place?
Through the chair, they could be, you can put whatever conditions you want on an approval, up to council to vote on and approve it, but that would be maybe one potential way to work that into what's required, because there's a development agreement and a roads and subdivision agreement. There's more that has to happen for this to actually, them to get to the point where they can apply for permits, right? So if you put something in writing as part of a resolution for council, it has to be then worked into what comes later, right before the shovels hit the ground. So
Sure.
Yeah.
So if it's the agreement of the rest of the board, would you all, and to dovetail on what Dave had talked about with Parkland, should we include in the resolution the wanting to make sure that it's not cash in lieu for Parkland, as well as what Councillor Beck was referring to, if that's the will of the board? Just put it out there.
Through the chair, I would leave that for the board to make a decision on, so, yeah.
Well, it kind of dovetails with the part under the public works piece where they were talking about, potentially including an AT facility and traffic calming in there. If that's going to be part of it, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that we do that, but, again, it's said here, these are, it would be preferred to have them included from the outset. So rather than coming back after the fact, I think it's a lot easier if, Dan Whalen's in there moving around dirt and soil and putting things in place. It's a lot easier to do it when you've got a blank canvas and you can go in and say, okay, I think this would be a good area where we could work. Talk to Mike Cassidy and say, Mike, where do you think something might work here? And I think this is kind of the time to have those discussions, as opposed to saying building it, having all the roads come in, all the work completed, and then say, gee, I wish we had thought of that. So I'd rather have those discussions now and be upfront with the developer and look at what the possibilities are, and then figure out how can we accommodate that to tie in with our desire to get increased usage of our transit system on a major corridor. So I would like to see it in there and at least have the discussions and see what's doable and possible, and so
Okay.
I'll leave it to the board.
So right now, the recommendation from the staff is to support the recommendation as is. So do we want to add on to that recommendation for council some of these highlighted items, and we can just fine tune how we want to word that? Is that what the board would like to see? And, speaking to the parkland as well as the active transportation piece? Did I miss something else too?
Yeah, well, I guess both of them are in there.
Yep.
Like, but it's, and I'm referring more to the bus stop one. It said it should consider future transit needs. I'd like it to consider future transit needs, like a little more stronger wording than that, and
So,
talking with the developer while we're at this point in time to say, how can we accommodate? We have we certainly, the project has all kinds of merits, and I think if we want to make it the best that we can, take East Royalty, take LM all around there. One of the identified shortfalls of the massive build that has gone out there is lack of transportation, is bus service, and we're trying to address that after the fact. And so if we can address some of this up front, I think it might help the overall project.
so how about then we simplify it a little bit by all the words that are in there that say should are switched to will?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Sen?
sorry, just a point of clarification here. Is this a rezoning application, or is this an application on rezoning, concurrent application with rezoning and subdivision and development as well?
Right now, this is just an application to move the land that's currently designated as low-density residential, single R2S, and move it into a CDA zone, into comprehensive development area. That's,
So will it not be addressed during the subdivision stage? What we're
Yes.
talking about?
yes, it will be. Yep.
So why should, as the recommendation stands, it does not need any kind of revision unless you are actually at the subdivision stage.
No,
Like,
no,
and
you're right, it doesn't. However, if it's the will of the board to add that in there, it is their decision, as Dave pointed out, that they can add that in there at this stage if the board wishes to. But no, you're both correct. You don't have to, but the board can decide to if they wish. Is that correct, David?
Through the chair, again, the board could give some more clear direction on what they're recommending. So Sen's not wrong that you could leave this to the subdivision, work it out then, but that's worked out administratively between city staff and the developer. And if there was no firm guidance or kind of nudge given by planning board and council, you know what I mean? Like if it was very firm in the approval that while council is approving this rezoning, but they also want to direct that this and this and this happen as part of the future subdivision that would occur, like that would absolutely have to get worked into it. Otherwise it's left as a negotiated process between staff and the developer internally, and it may or may not happen. I'm talking about the bus stops. Not so much the parkland piece, because that would be
Yep.
a hard requirement of a city department. But if environment sustainability said we would like to see this, and public works said we would like to see that, if they don't have any guiding document to compel that, we might be in a situation where the developer could just ignore that. But if it was very firm and binding and an approval of council, that's a bit of a different matter, if that makes any sense. It's like council directed that to happen through an approval if there's no regulation saying that, yes, this has to happen, which I'm not aware there is. So.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting a heavy hand. I'm kind of suggesting that we're trying to find mutually beneficial outcomes from this project. The developer, of course, has their own concept plan, But from our end, we also have some things that we're looking to achieve from the developments as well, too. So in your words, Dave, I think I'd be looking for the nudge to direct staff to have those discussions with the developer and take into consideration what the city is looking for and in return from that, and try and work collaboratively with, don't go and say, you have to do this or have to do that, but I think have those open discussions with the developer and see if we can come out to a win-win situation.
Thank you for that. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I don't see any downside to including the two items, the parkland and the transit corridor, so I would support that.
Okay, so we have a plan. Somebody want to put a resolution on the floor? Go ahead. Okay, so Councillor Beck is supporting staff's recommendation with the add-on that there is direct conversation with staff and the developer to ensure the transit and the parkland piece are addressed. Is that right? Did I do that right, or do you want it?
I think the parkland piece would take a priority. I think the transit piece would be a good fit where we are when we've got a new project. I'd like to see it in there, and I think it could be a good complement I think it could be an enhancement for the project, and it would serve the city well as well, too, and I think it would serve the residents and potentially the commercial that's in there as well, too. So, if I were to prioritize, I'd say get the parkland is really, I think, should be almost a non-negotiable. The other part I would see as, I think it would be a good complement to the project if we could get the transit piece in there. Both of these elements are in the recommendations that came from the respective departments, so it's not like we're pulling them out of thin air. I think it's just a little bit more of a support or confirmation or affirmation that that's the way that we want our professional staff to proceed.
Okay. Okay, so moved by Councillor Beck, seconded by Paul. So,
Madam Chair,
yes?
so I just have a question, and this is maybe for David. This land is a vacant land, right, David? Or was it arable?
It's vacant land.
Oh, and the land use, and it has been a vacant land for last several years, I would say?
Yeah, it was agricultural, now it's zoned R1, R2, something. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Okay, Councillor McCabe has called the question. All those in favor? Sin?
In favor.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's all 14 of our files this evening. Almost. Any introduction of new business? Motion to adjourn. Good night, everybody. Moved by Bobby Kenny and seconded by Councillor Beck. Good night, everybody.
favor.
Bye.